So over the last few days, we were in Fort Chipewyan working with the communities on the land, on the ground, sharing skills and knowledge exchanges. So Indigenous knowledge health indicators and how those are related to wildlife health. We did a lot of training with community youth, elders, and community monitors on how to collect and process a lot of the samples that we've worked with. And now the next steps involve taking those samples back to the National Wildlife Research Centre in Ottawa, doing sample preparation and chemical analyses to determine those levels of contaminants in the wildlife that we've worked with. So this is Fort Chip with a black circle. So along here, and this is Fort McMurray. So animals collected in this area are similar than animals collected here. The circles are different, of different color. So even though the levels aren't super high, we know that the signature of those contaminants are still coming from the Fort McMurray area. So we want to continue doing this monitoring to see whether or not the levels are going to reach, a high enough threshold that then triggers management or mitigation action. People would you got to try to fix this before it gets out of hand, right? So by monitoring, we don't only monitor the levels, but we want to see if things are going up or going down. The data after it's generated is quality controlled and quality assured, and then it's shared with our collaborators and partners at the provincial level with industry. At the provincial level, especially with the health authorities, to determine whether or not at the levels detected could pose a harm to human health, especially for those that consume the wildlife. So they have the medical experts on staff that are able to evaluate our data in light of consumption frequencies and amounts consumed by the communities. Over the last 4 years, the data we've generated with the communities in Fort Chipewyan and elsewhere in Alberta is clearly showing an oil sand signature in many of the tissues that we've analyzed. Having said this, apart from mercury, levels are not yet too concerning. But at the same time, there's still a lot that we don't know about the health effects from exposure to these compounds. So this is where the ongoing monitoring and continued efforts on the land and on the ground is really important in helping us establish a strong enough baseline to eventually helping us make links to impaired health or the effects of exposure to these compounds.
Hear what it's all about for Phil Thomas in Part 5 as he shares his personal reflections on his work and why he believes taking care of the environment is so important. This video series was made possible through funding from the Oil Sands Monitoring Program and was produced in collaboration with the Mikisew, Cree, and Athabasca Chipewyan First Nations.